Do you work with or around hazardous chemicals? If so, do you know what those chemicals are? Do you know their hazards? Do you know how to handle these chemicals safely? Do you know what to do if an emergency occurs? If you cannot answer those questions, you could be at serious risk. To ensure safety, you have a right and a responsibility to know about the hazardous chemicals in your workplace and how to protect yourself from exposure. This knowledge could save you, your coworkers, and your family from accidental injury or illness. Ultimately, this knowledge could even save your life. More than 30 million workers are potentially exposed to one or more chemical hazards in the workplace. With an estimated 650,000 existing hazardous chemical products and hundreds of new ones being introduced every day, a serious problem exists for exposed workers and their families. Exposure to certain chemicals causes or contributes to many serious health effects, such as heart ailments, kidney and lung damage, sterility, cancer, burns, and rashes. Also, some chemicals are safety hazards and have the potential to cause fires and explosions and other serious accidents. To reduce the risk of injury or illness caused by hazardous chemicals in the workplace, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration has developed the Hazard Communication Standard, also known as the Right to Know Act. Basically, this regulation states that employees have the right to know about the chemical hazards they may be exposed to at work and how to defend themselves against these hazards. If you work with or around hazardous chemicals, you will be affected and protected by the Hazard Communication or Hazcom standard. The Hazard Communication Standard has 4 basic components: a written hazard communication program, material safety data sheets, labels and other forms of warning, and employee training and information. First, all employers covered by the standard must develop a written hazard communication program that includes an inventory of all chemicals present in the workplace, provisions for container labeling and other forms of warning, collection and availability of material safety data sheets, and procedures for training employees on chemical hazards and protective measures. Implementation of this program helps ensure that you and your coworkers have the hazard information you need to handle chemicals properly and safely. If you have questions about the Hazard Communication Program in your workplace, talk to your supervisor or your safety officer. The second component of the Hazcom standard involves material safety data sheets, or MSDSs. Chemical manufacturers and importers are required by law to obtain or develop an MSDS for each hazardous chemical they produce or import. Employers must have an MSDS for each hazardous chemical they use. The role of the MSDS is to provide detailed information on the chemical, including its potential hazard effects, its physical and chemical characteristics, and recommendations for appropriate protective measures. Copies of the MSDSs for hazardous chemicals in a given work site must be readily accessible to employees in that area. If you have any questions about a specific chemical, refer to the MSDS. It will tell you everything you need to know about that chemical. The third component of the Hazcom standard addresses container labeling. According to this provision, employers are required to ensure that each container of a hazardous chemical is labeled, tagged, or marked to identify the chemical and shows all hazard warnings appropriate for employee protection. The warning label is often your first source of information about chemical hazards. The name and identity on the label can be used to find the material safety data sheet on the product, which will give you additional information on hazards and steps for protection. The fourth and final provision of the Hazcom standard requires employers to provide training and information to employees and contractors about the hazardous chemicals present in their workplace. Training must include information on the hazards of the chemicals in the work area, measures employees need to take to protect themselves from the hazards, reading and interpreting labels and material safety data sheets, and the proper use and care of personal protective equipment. This training must be conducted prior to initial assignment to work with a hazardous chemical and whenever the hazard changes. Remember, when used improperly, hazardous chemicals can be extremely dangerous. The Hazard Communication Standard can help protect you from these dangers. To ensure safety, you have a right and a responsibility to know about the hazardous chemicals present in your workplace. Before using any chemical, read labels and material safety data sheets provided by your employer. Follow instructions and warnings carefully. If you have questions, ask your supervisor or safety officer. This is James Drury, reminding you to take care and be safe. The DashShield Dacon Hazardous Communication Program is outlined in the Safety Manual. Material safety data sheets are located in the DashShield Project Manager's vehicle, the Technician's vehicle, and also the Dacon Foreman's vehicle. Such information shall be up to date and shall always be readily available upon request by employees or their designated representative. Our Hazardous Communication Program organizes the information regarding hazardous substances that may be encountered on the job site. According to the Hazardous Communication Program, each container of hazardous substances must be labeled. Labels are the employee's first source of information. The Home Office will maintain a master file of the MSDS for each hazardous substance which may be encountered on all company projects. All MSDSs must be given to Company Safety Department for entry into the Hazardous Communication Program Master File.